Bill, what is going on? You're selling our house without even telling me? Oh, I didn't want to bother you. You had enough on your plate with work and all. Are you serious? I have been paying the mortgage on this house for the past 5 years, and you didn't even bother to ask me if I wanted to sell it. Well, I thought it was time to move on. We could use the money to travel and do other things. Move on? This is our home. We built our life here together. And how can you just sell it without my consent? I have a say in this too. Felicia, what do you know about real estate, really? Let me take care of this. I know what's best for us. That's not true. I have been paying the mortgage for years. Something is going on, and you're not being honest about it. You're acting crazy. So many years together, and you can't even trust my decisions? Are you trying to insult me? What? No, that's not what I meant. Don't turn it around on me. I just. You just what? Know your place, lady. Don't you test me. My name is Felicia, and I'm in my late 40s. A few years ago, I made a decision that would change my life forever. At that point, I had been married to my husband, Bill, for 25 years, and together we had a son and a daughter. Our kids had grown up and moved out of the house. And as much as we loved city life, we had always talked about traveling the world together. About 5 years ago, our youngest child moved out, and we felt like it was the perfect time to make our move. Unfortunately, Bill had already changed his mind, and he didn't want to travel too much anymore. He just wanted to move back to the countryside and live a peaceful life. I was disappointed at first, but I wanted to make him happy. So we found a beautiful house in a small town, surrounded by lush green fields and rolling hills. The house was perfect, with plenty of space for our hobbies and a big garden where we could grow our own vegetables. Of course, there was still a lot of renovation to be done. Designing our dream house was not something I had always wanted to do. But noticing how Bill wasn't interested in the process, I felt like I had to take responsibility. I wanted to create a space that reflected our personalities and the life we had built together. I spent countless hours poring over plans, selecting finishes, and choosing the perfect furniture. But, as with any home renovation or construction project, things didn't always go as planned. At some point, I realized that I had accidentally gone over budget. It was a mistake that I regretted deeply, but I knew that I had to take responsibility for my actions. I took out a loan and worked hard to pay it off. It wasn't easy, but I was committed to making things right and creating the home of our dreams. While I was working to pay off our loan, my husband began to struggle with his health. He wanted to retire early to focus on his well-being and take care of himself. So I became the primary breadwinner for our family. It was a challenge, but I was happy to be able to provide for us during those few years. As my workload increased, my husband seemed to become more detached and distant from me, leaving me confused and feeling unsure of why he was behaving in such an aloof manner. I initially thought that his behavior might have been a result of the sudden change in life circumstances. But as the years passed by, it only seemed to be worse, leaving me feeling like I was sharing a house with a complete stranger. Of course, We had encountered our fair share of difficult situations in the past, but I had always been hopeful that our love would bring us out of them even stronger. I had never once questioned my husband's loyalty and commitment to me and to our relationship. But soon, everything felt different. I discovered that my husband had gradually become suspiciously friendly with my neighbor, Kayla, a 40-something widowed woman who had just moved in to live really close to our home. I was filled with an intense wave of mixed emotions. This was a difficult and confusing situation for me, as I hadn't expected this kind of behavior from him. To make matters worse, that was not the only secret he was keeping from me. One day, when I was home a bit earlier than usual, I bumped into a realtor who was hovering around our garden and taking pictures to advertise it. I was taken aback when I found out that my husband was trying to sell our house. This unexpected news shook me to the core and left me feeling utterly devastated. I was still working so hard to pay for the loan, and he was already thinking about selling it? I decided that I had to confront him. I was really emotional when I started such a hard conversation with him. Bill, what is going on? You're selling our house without even telling me? Oh, I didn't want to bother you. You had enough on your plate with work and all. Are you serious? I have been paying the mortgage on this house for the past few years. And you didn't even bother to ask me if I wanted to sell it? Well, I thought it was time to move on. We could use the money to travel and do other things. Move on? This is our home. We built our life here together. And how can you just sell it without my consent? I have a say in this too. Felicia, what do you know about real estate, really? Let me take care of this. I know what's best for us. That's not true. I have been paying the mortgage for years. Something is going on, and you're not being honest about it. You're acting crazy. So many years together and you can't even trust my decisions? Are you trying to insult me? What? No, that's not what I meant. Don't turn it around on me. You just what? Know your place, lady. Don't you test me. At that point, Bill seemed like he could get violent in just a second. I was scared. I felt like the man in front of me was no longer the one I fell in love with years ago. In my gut, I knew that something was terribly wrong. I took immediate action and contacted the real agents to stop selling the house. I also made a point of getting in touch with the potential buyers so that I had their details. I was absolutely shocked when I discovered that the buyers of our home were, in fact, Kyla's son and his wife. It seemed like my worst fears had been confirmed. My husband was turning against me, leaving me to face a future where divorce might just be inevitable. I realized I could not trust that man anymore. It pained me a great deal, but I also knew that I needed to stand up for myself. And so, I started preparing for what appeared to be an unavoidable outcome and braced myself for the changes ahead. Unfortunately, my husband soon figured out that something was wrong, based on my change of attitude. He suspected that I wanted a divorce. So he laid his cards on the table. He said that if we were going to get a divorce, he would demand half of the value of the house, even though it had always been me who had worked hard and made financial sacrifices to pay for it. The few weeks after that were the worst time of my life. I couldn't quit my job because I needed it more than ever, but I was so stressed out that I couldn't focus at work. To make matters worse, Kyla was incredibly bold and had the nerve to show up at my house with her son and daughter-in-law, as if it was going to be there soon. I was completely taken aback by their audacity and couldn't believe that she would have the gall to try and take something that didn't belong to them. The worst part was that Kyla and Bill were acting as if nobody knew about their affair. They really thought they were succeeding in terrorizing me mentally and kicking me out of the house. But of course, I couldn't back off so easily. They didn't know that when they were drunk on victory, I was secretly planning for my future without Bill. My son Johnny was a very good lawyer. I knew I could count on him, so I told him everything. Despite the heartache and disappointment, John had been tirelessly gathering evidence of my husband's illicit affair with Kyla for me. They were so reckless, they didn't even try and hide their tracks. In just a few weeks, John had already gathered photos of Bill and Kyla meeting up everywhere they could think of: restaurants, parks, Kyla's place, or even her son's place. I was utterly devastated and felt completely lost looking at such heartbreaking evidence. But luckily, John stayed strong for me and provided unwavering support. He helped me with all the legal papers I needed to prepare. He even helped me break the news to his sister, despite how difficult it was for him. It was truly comforting to see how close the two of them were. My daughter was understandably in shock, but she was still so compassionate and loving toward me and her brother. She would call to check in on me, and we would have heartfelt conversations to help each other get through such a tough time. I'm so grateful that my kids had grown up to be responsible and reliable people, not like their dad, who had been so unreliable his entire life. And so, with everything in place, I was ready to make the big move. I decided to go ahead and file for divorce and even sue him for all the pain he caused. When he found out that I was suing him, he was enraged. "How could you do this to me?" "Do what?" "Turning against me. What were you thinking?" "No, Bill. I have to ask you that question." "What question?" "How could you do this to me?" "What the hell are you talking about, you wicked witch?" "You know exactly what I was talking about." "How could you possibly drag our son into this? You have ruined our family. You have ruined this for me." "No, Bill. You have ruined our family. You have ruined it for yourself. See you at court." Just like that, I moved out. I walked away and didn't look back, because I couldn't spend another minute next to that horrible human being. It pained me so much to move out of the house I had worked so hard on, but it was the right thing to do. It was Bill's dream, not mine. I loved him so much that I was ready to sacrifice my dream of traveling the world, and that was how he repaid me. I needed to face the hurtful truth and focus on the legal battle against Bill and Kyla. They didn't deserve to have what they wanted. And I was ready to stand up for myself and claim back what was supposed to be mine. After further investigation, It was revealed that Kyla was not, in fact, a widow. She had been married to a wealthy but chronically ill man. While this marriage would have come with a certain amount of financial security, it was clear that Kyla had been biding her time and waiting for her husband to pass away, so his assets would legally become hers. So it became clear Kyla was obviously a gold digger at heart. My daughter, of course, was on my side after finding out about everything. She was still heartbroken, but she was also a strong, wise young woman. As a well-known marketer, she could take advantage of her connections and reach out to Kyla's husband. He was unfortunately hospitalized at that time. But he still wanted to hear our side of the story. It turned out that he had always been in doubt about his wife and was already on the fence about leaving his inheritance to her. Even more surprisingly, he said that her son wasn't even his. Kyla's son was in fact born during her previous marriage with another ill-fated wealthy guy. So despite all the inconveniences, Kyla's husband still chose to proceed with a divorce due to her unfaithful affair. As a result of this crazy situation, Kyla, her son, and her daughter-in-law would not receive anything from the inheritance. Too ashamed of everything, they soon had to move far away, and I never had to see them ever again. As for me, after months and months, I was victorious in my legal case. I was finally divorced, and my husband didn't get any share of the house due to his affair with Kyla. But worse, my husband was exposed and humiliated in front of our children. Eventually, with Kyla and her kids gone, he apologized profusely and begged for forgiveness. But I made the decision to never see him again. The thought of living out the rest of my days alone seemed daunting at the moment. But I knew I could be content and enjoy life without him by my side. After a long period of deep thought and consideration, I ultimately made the life-changing decision to use the rest of my 40s to travel around the world and explore all the amazing adventures I had dreamed of when I was still a young adult. I purchased a backpack and carried with me a small but sufficient amount of money and my passport. I then decided to sell the house and leave my job. I have been to 27 different countries since then, and I have made so many meaningful connections with fellow travelers. Just this year, I bought a beautiful house in Hawaii as my home base, where I could often host gatherings for my extended family and kids. New friends I make on the island, or even just tourists who pass by. It really felt like I had to lose someone like Bill to be able to live my fullest life. I'm happier than I have ever been. So I'm proud of myself for getting here.